General Hospital spoilers for the week of August 11th to 15th tease that the ruins of past decisions are closing in on the residents of Port Charles as old flames, shattered secrets, and shifting loyalties begin to rewrite the future. At the center of it all, Willow Tate stood on the edge of heartbreak and hope, her soul torn between past mistakes and the promise of redemption. It had been days since she left the house with Wiley and Amelia in the dead of night. Days since she'd confronted the silence in her heart and realized the truth that had haunted her for years. She wasn't just running from Michael. She wasn't even just fighting for her children. She had been searching her entire life for a man who would rescue her from herself. And in trying to mold Drew into that savior, she had shattered both of them. Now, Drew was gone. Not from Port Charles, but from her life. Their relationship had crumbled under the weight of unsaid truths and false expectations. In the echo of that ending, Willow finally saw it for what it was: not love, not really. She had been clinging to the idea of safety, of stability. But Drew had never been her anchor. And Michael had always been the storm she both feared and longed for. She stood outside the Courtemain mansion in the rain, the hem of her dress soaked, her arms trembling not from the cold but the weight of desperation. When the door opened and Michael appeared, his face unreadable, she didn't hesitate. "I need to talk to you," she said softly, her voice hollow. Michael didn't speak at first. He just stepped aside, allowing her in. They walked in silence to the sitting room, where the fire crackled and cast long shadows on the walls. Willow sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped tightly, as Michael leaned against the mantel, watching her. "I'm sorry," she began, and the words cracked as they left her lips. "I lost myself." Michael's expression remained still. "I wasn't trying to hurt you," she said. "Or the kids. I couldn't breathe anymore. And I thought Drew could fix that. But he couldn't. And I blamed you. For everything. For being too much and never enough at the same time. But it wasn't you. It was me." Michael finally spoke. "You took them, Willow. You disappeared with our children. That's not something I can just forget." "I know," she whispered. "But I need to fix it. I want to fix it. Please, Michael. Give me a chance. Let's work out custody. Let's talk. Not as enemies. As parents." He stared at her for a long moment, then slowly walked toward her and sat down. "This isn't just about custody," he said. "It's about trust. And I don't know if we'll ever get that back. But we have to try," she said. "For them." Michael looked away, his jaw clenched. One step at a time. And that was more than she had hoped for. Elsewhere, far from the domestic implosion unfolding behind closed doors, Emma Scorpio Drake sat cross-legged on Trina's dorm bed, a steaming mug of cocoa cradled in her hands. Her eyes were wide, exhausted, and unsure. "I don't even know why I took the job," she said, shaking her head. "I mean, I do. Dalton seemed brilliant. Respected. But now, it all feels off. Wrong." Trina leaned against the wall beside her. "You don't owe him anything, Emma. And Jocelyn didn't warn you because she's jealous or bitter. She warned you because she cares." Emma looked down at her mug. "I know. I feel stupid." "Don't," Trina said firmly. "You were trying to make your own path. That doesn't make you stupid." There was a silence between them, soft and intimate, broken only by the hum of the heater. "Can I ask you something?" Emma said, her voice barely above a whisper. Trina nodded. "What's the deal with Gio? I mean, does he ever talk about me?" Trina gave a sly smile. "He might have mentioned you. Once or twice. When he thought no one was listening." Emma blushed. "I don't know what it is about him. He's quiet. And kind of closed off. But there's something raw. Like he's been through something." "He has," Trina said. "But maybe that's why he sees you. For real." Emma's heart fluttered. Maybe Port Charles wasn't just a pit stop after all. But while young hearts tried to make sense of longing and mistakes, Britt Westbourne was drowning in a far darker tide. The resort at Five Poppies was supposed to be a safe haven, a hidden slice of luxury masked beneath layers of WSB code and secrecy. But to Britt, it was a prison dressed in silk. And now, the walls were closing in. She had disobeyed her orders. Again. She was supposed to keep a low profile, report to Pascal, and await further instructions. But Britt was tired of waiting. Tired of running. And most of all, tired of bowing to the whims of a boss she had never even met face to face. Pascal had been clear. Step out of line, and the consequences would be severe. Britt didn't care anymore. When he stormed into her suite, she was ready. "You've gone too far," Pascal snapped, slamming the door shut behind him. "You compromised the drop in Berlin, and you exposed your position to that Corinthos girl." "Her name is Jocelyn," Britt said coolly. "And she's smarter than half of the WSB agents I've worked with. She's a liability." "She's the only one who actually listens," Britt growled. "Unlike you, Pascal." He moved closer, voice low and threatening. "You're disposable, Britt. You always have been." She didn't hesitate. Her fist connected with his jaw before the threat even finished leaving his lips. Pascal stumbled back, dazed, blood trailing from his mouth. "You want to threaten me?" Britt spat. "Do it again. I dare you." Pascal's eyes burned with hatred, but he didn't move. Not yet. But the line had been crossed. There was no going back. Later that night, Britt met Jocelyn on the back veranda overlooking the sea. "I need a favor," Britt said, lighting a cigarette with trembling fingers. "And you can't breathe a word of this to anyone." Jocelyn raised an eyebrow. "You mean about you being alive? Or about the fact that you're working with the WSB?" "Both," Britt said. "At least until I finish what I started. If they know I'm here, if Jason knows, it'll ruin everything." "You think he's coming?" Jocelyn asked. "He's already on his way." Jocelyn didn't say anything. She looked out over the waves, her heart thudding with dread. She wasn't ready. Not to face Jason. Not to face what her involvement with the WSB had cost her. But the storm was already approaching. And when it hit, it would shatter more than secrets. Because hours later, as Jason Morgan stepped off the transport boat onto the private dock behind Five Poppies, the night sky exploded. A deafening blast rocked the resort. Flames erupted from the east wing, shattering windows and sending staff and guests into chaos. Alarms screamed. Smoke poured into the corridors. Jason ran toward the wreckage. Inside, Britt had been meeting with a contact, an old handler with information about the boss's true identity. But now the room was in ruins, the handler dead, and Britt half-conscious beneath a beam. Jason found her seconds before the ceiling collapsed entirely. He pulled her free, coughing and stumbling, carrying her toward safety as another explosion ripped through the kitchen behind them. And somewhere in the chaos, a scream echoed, a voice Jason knew too well. Jocelyn. She had been in the West Corridor, returning from a covert meeting of her own, when the second blast went off. Smoke blinded her. Heat seared her arms. And when the debris came down, she barely had time to shield her head. Then everything went black. And on the other side of the world, as news of the explosion filtered through encrypted channels, Jack Brennan sat in a private lounge in Monaco, swirling a glass of scotch. He picked up his phone and dialed a number. Carly's number. When she answered, her voice was already trembling. "What did you do?" "I warned you," Brennan said calmly. "No one walks away from me. Not Jocelyn. Not Britt. Not you. You son of a..." "I suggest you rethink your position, Carly. I have the original hard copies. Of everything. If I go down, you go down with me. And so does your daughter." He hung up. And in that moment, Carly knew the truth. Jack Brennan had just changed the game. Forever. The flames had died down, but the smoke lingered, a ghostly veil over the shattered wreckage of the Five Poppies resort. Emergency crews moved like shadows through the charred remains of what had once been a fortress of secrets. Stretchers rolled. Names were called. Some were answered. Others were not. And in the middle of it all, Jason Morgan stood over Jocelyn Jacks, her face streaked with ash, her body limp and barely breathing. He had found her beneath the collapsed corridor near the pool deck, her hand reaching out as if trying to grab something or someone. The paramedics said she was stable, but unconscious. A head wound, likely a concussion. Possible internal injuries. She would need scans. Blood work. Monitoring. But Jason couldn't focus on any of that. All he saw was her face, pale and still, and all he felt was fury. Behind him, Britt stood wrapped in a blanket, a bruise forming across her temple and soot smeared across her cheek. She hadn't spoken since being pulled from the fire. Not a word. Not to Jason. Not to the medics. Not even when Pascal's body was pulled from the Eastern Wing hours later, mangled and lifeless. It should have brought her relief. It didn't. Because the explosion hadn't been just about Pascal. Someone had wanted her silenced. Jason moved toward her as the chaos subsided around them. His voice was low, urgent. "You said you were dead." "I was," Britt answered, her eyes distant. "Until I wasn't." "You let me believe it," Jason said, his tone heavier now, not with anger but with hurt. "I had to," she replied. "The people I was working for, the ones behind all of this, they ordered it. They wanted me invisible. Disposable." Jason searched her face. "And Jocelyn? Was she part of that too?" "No," Britt said sharply, her eyes flashing. "She stumbled into it. Just like I did. She's smarter than they ever gave her credit for. That's why they tried to kill her." Jason's jaw clenched. "Then give me a name." Britt hesitated, torn between the loyalty she no longer believed in and the vengeance she now craved. "Jack Brennan." Jason's silence was the calm before the storm. He had suspected it, sensed it from the moment Anna mentioned his name. But now it was real. Brennan wasn't just pulling strings from a distance. He was orchestrating war. And Jocelyn had nearly paid the price. Back in Port Charles, the news of the explosion reached Carly like a punch to the chest. She had barely slept since her last conversation with Brennan. His threats still echoed in her ears, but this was something else entirely. Jocelyn, caught in an international web of espionage and bloodshed. Jason, dragged back into the darkness he had tried so hard to leave behind. And her own past, now a loaded gun pointed at everything she loved. She sat in her kitchen, the silence deafening, when the encrypted flash drive Brennan had once threatened her with landed in her lap, couriered anonymously through an unmarked envelope. No note. No explanation. Just the cold, metallic weight of her sins. Inside, every file. Every secret. Every deal. Carly stared at it for a long time, her hands shaking. Then she picked up the phone and called the one person she had sworn never to trust again. "Anna," she said. "We need to talk." Across town, Willow sat beside Michael at the family law office, both of them exhausted, guarded, but present. After their initial conversation, he had agreed to one meeting. One chance to see if they could forge a path forward for Wiley and Amelia without turning it into a battleground. But even now, Willow could feel the distance in his posture, the invisible wall she had built with her actions and now couldn't tear down. "I'm not asking for custody today," she said softly. "I'm asking for a chance. Joint therapy. Parenting classes. Supervised visits if that's what it takes. I just want to be a mother again." Michael didn't look at her. He kept his gaze on the mediator's legal pad. "They ask about you every day." Willow's heart twisted. "I miss them so much." "I know," Michael said, voice strained. "But this can't just be about what you want. It has to be what's best for them. I understand, she said. That's why I'm here. Michael finally looked at her, and in that moment, something softened between them. Not reconciliation. Not yet. But perhaps the first crack in the ice. Back on the university campus, Emma walked through the art courtyard, her thoughts tangled like the ivy crawling up the walls. The conversation with Trina had left her rattled, in the best way. For the first time, she didn't feel like the girl who had to prove herself. She felt seen. Understood. And as she spotted Gio across the quad, sketchbook in hand, something in her chest stirred. She approached slowly. What are you drawing? Gio looked up, his expression unreadable. Nothing important. Emma smiled. That's what people say when it means everything. He hesitated, then turned the pad toward her. It was a portrait. Of her. Not posed. Not polished. Just real. I didn't mean for you to see it, he said. I was trying to figure out what it is about you that gets under my skin. And did you? She asked. Not yet, Gio said. But I think I want to keep trying. Emma sat beside him, neither of them needing to say anything else. Trina watched from a distance and smiled, quietly relieved. In a world full of secrets and lies, it was rare to witness something honest blooming in real time. Meanwhile, at WSB headquarters in Geneva, a quiet storm brewed. Brennan was under pressure. Pascal's death had complicated things. Britt's survival had endangered too much. And now, Jason Morgan was breathing down his neck. He stood in his office, watching a video feed of Jocelyn being wheeled into surgery, her face pale beneath the oxygen mask. She was never supposed to be involved, he muttered. His assistant didn't respond. Brennan turned sharply. Find Britt. Find Jason. And if Carly so much as breathes to the wrong person, I want her silenced. The assistant nodded and left. But what Brennan didn't know was that Carly had already taken steps. The flash drive was no longer in her possession. It was now encrypted in a digital vault, tied to a release mechanism she couldn't stop even if she wanted to. If anything happened to her, the entire world would know what Jack Brennan had done. In a safe house on the outskirts of Zurich, Britt rested on a cot while Jason stood by the window, silent. I should have told you everything from the beginning, she said. Jason nodded but didn't speak. I didn't want to believe how bad it was, Britt continued. I kept thinking I could fix it from the inside. That if I followed orders long enough, I'd earn the right to change the game. You were wrong, Jason said flatly. I know. There was another long silence. But you can still make it right, he added. Britt looked up. How? By burning it all down. A flicker of something dangerous lit in her eyes. You'll help me, she asked. I'll protect Jocelyn, Jason said. But the rest? We do it together, Britt said. Or not at all. And somewhere far away, in a marble corridor lined with locked doors and sealed fates, the countdown had already begun. The game had changed. The players were ready. And Port Charles would never be the same again.